The ways of the ego, the fruit of ignorance. All alive human beings are egoistic. No doubt about that. The reason is, ego is the only reference point that we all carry. We need an identity for survival. Ego has been an indelible imprint in human nature. Everyone feels egoistic, even though we all know in the very core of our heart that it is a fruit of ignorance. Not only a fruit, but a very toxic one too. But what to do? The ego too seeks fulfillment like any other forms of life energies. Remember, ego moves along the very subtly negative paths to reach this fulfillment. Wherever it can exert itself or hold reigns of supremacy, it appears. However, failure is poison to it. Each success, whether negative or positive, nourishes it. Since the path of negativity is more accessible, and also because negativity is like a downhill journey, negativity is just like a downhill path, the ego likes it extremely. And the ego is so fond of all negative channels, and it goes slipping down that way. The path of positivity, on the other hand, is a bit drudger and steeper one, and usually only very few people are found along it. Very few people are found along the path of positivity, which is an uphill journey. One of the bitterest truths that we all know is this, that positivity is very often discarded by people. And as a result of it, very few people on earth experience true kind of bliss, true kind of contentment in their life. Anyways, let us now explore the pathways of ego which I just mentioned. The different pathways. Recognizing them, identifying the path can sometimes stop our journey. That may perhaps help us. So the topic of our discussion is the pathways of egoism. The first and foremost way, easy way, downhill path is that of criticism. It is the easiest path. Anyone can criticize anyone else. It is quite a funny fact that when we find fault with others, the ego grows out of proportion. Haven't you heard very ordinary people talking about great personalities like businessmen or VIPs or sports stars? Any ordinary person can criticize any great person. Even the great actors and actresses are not spared. They are even corrected and guided by those people who haven't seen a raised flat home in their life, who haven't experienced any stage performance even in their life. Haven't you seen cricket stars find criticism not by bigger stars, but by people who do not know how to hold a bat? When a student finds mistakes in a teacher, he feels superior and his ego gets fulfilled. So criticism is the easiest path for our bloody ego. Second, counseling. If criticism doesn't work or if it is not used, counseling is another method. Anyone can advise anyone else in the world. It's a fact of life, and everybody does that. Almost every advice is free of cost. And funny enough, almost every advice is not listened to. Why? There again, the reason is ego. We see people eagerly arguing with each other sometimes. Haven't you ever noticed, if our people listen to others in their argument, they only listen to pick up their point, pick up their next set of arguments, not to understand. If people ever listen to others, they just listen to pick up new arguments, points of argument, not to understand anything. This is again because of ego. So when ego comes in between, only misunderstandings can happen. Only then understandings can be missed. That's what we call, and that's what is called misunderstanding. So the second pathway is that of counseling, giving advice. And the third pathway is slightly different. Maintaining a derogatory approach is the third way. If criticism doesn't work, if criticism is not used, and advice also is not possible, then just keep a negative attitude, a derogatory attitude in the mind about anything and everything and everybody. Showing a critical or disrespectful attitude. This also is done by many people. If criticism or counseling doesn't work, still we hold on to our ego and find several other ways. So, another easy method is to consider people and things as inferior or of a lower quality, or just we assume that they are of a lower quality. Just look down on things and neighbors, colleagues, juniors, and even superiors. Whenever a chance sets in, they also speak about that enormous inferiority or negative sides of others. It is good to know that when we appreciate a thing, the ego feels belittled. So ego is just mortgaged for some time to appreciate others. In appreciation, a part of our ego gets mortgaged. So no wonder people talk lowly of others. The reason? The answer is this. The answer is self-nourishment. The fourth pathway is calumny or slandering. There are professional calumnists, if you can use the word that way, spreading rumors and making misrepresentation about people in the limelight or people who are just their rivals, either professional or personal. The intent and purpose behind is destruction, a severe thirst springing out of jealousy. The enormous amount of mudslinging and bitter libels expressed in the social media is only just one facet of this disease. Whoever is involved in calumny believes that he or she is far above others. Of course, some people react out of certain convictions sometimes. They have seen injustice, discrimination, so they talk bitterly against politicians, against political parties, etc., etc. That comes out of their conviction. But there are a set of people who are just trained in their motive hunting of motiveless malignity. Motive hunting of motiveless malignity means purposeful hunting without any purpose. When we do something, there is a purpose behind. But certain sort of calumny, you know that there is no purpose. Just destruction is the purpose, the pleasure of destruction. So this expression, motive hunting of motiveless malignity, this expression should be highlighted because this is practiced by many people actually, even in the modern civilized world. There are people employed in this job to slander and pull down the public image of others. Well, in this blame game, we know when one forefinger is pointed against the other, three other fingers are hidingly turned towards the one who blames. Narcissism is the next pathway. Is the excessive love, self-love, and involvement with oneself. Almost all of us experience narcissist tendencies as a matter of fact. But in some people, this becomes an obsession or a kind of mania. This is so pleasurable a tendency that the person may go totally blind against the realities and situations in life and tend to forget the needs of others. This too is a downhill journey. Anyone can slip into it any moment if not guarded well enough. In other words, they will fall into a limbo state where nothing else comes under their purview other than self-absorption. The fifth one, very important one, anger. Anger is one of the most exciting negative energies. I said it is exciting. It is exciting for sure. No doubt, it's very powerful too. When the impulse of anger arises, the subject experiences a sort of exhilaration, thrill, and supremacy. But since it is so negative in nature, in 99% of cases, the person involved in anger will repent and suffer the emptiness and its frustration. Anger is definitely the worst ego trip. Now let's go to the last one, that is the sixth one. Another subtle ways of the ego is some kind of an extreme identification with religious doctrines like that of egolessness. There are people who talk volumes about egolessness. There are people who talk about the need for egolessness. The thought that a person is not at all egoistic can drive them crazy with utter ego sometimes. This is more dangerous. This is ego entering through the back door. Well, these are the subtle tendencies or ways of the ego. As has been noted already, all these pathways unmistakably lead to hell and suffering. Now, how to escape from this hell? Let me suggest some least discussed methods of dropping this ego trip. To drop this ego trip, we can adopt some methods. A fruit is naturally dropped when it becomes fully ripe and heavy. We all know that a heavy, ripe fruit naturally falls without pain. If you pluck an unripe fruit, there is much pain. But a ripe fruit comes off the branch very easily. So allow your ego to achieve full growth. Simply allow it to grow. Be watchful at the same time. By and by, you will see that it is becoming more and more burdensome to you yourself. Then it is bound to be dropped. Otherwise, it's very difficult to be dropped. Nobody can drop the ego. But when you see it as a burden, and because of its own burden, it will be dropped. Please do not misunderstand what is being spoken about here. In between, I said, be watchful at the same time. Do not try to delete your ego overnight. Okay, so from tomorrow onwards, I will be egoless. We cannot have any plan like that. Watchfulness and deeper consciousness will only help one in this direction. Each moment, analyze in which all junctions ego is popping out its head and talking aloud about its importance. Be watchful, and when we watch like clouds melting, they will start melting too. What is the difference between ego and egoism? Ego is just a sense of self-importance. Egoism comes when ego becomes too much. When ego is stretched to certain limits, it becomes egoism. It's a sort of distortion. Egoism is a sort of distortion. The second method I would like to suggest is the practice of saying sorry is a very powerful method. And when we say sorry, it can help us open the jammed doors of misunderstandings. Okay, many doors are jammed. It gets jammed in our life. Even if you use all force, it doesn't open. But if you have got a key, things get opened very easily, very simply. So the word sorry is a key, a beautiful key with which we can open any jammed doors of misunderstandings. Also, the word sorry, the practice of saying sorry will help us to drop a bit of ego. The egoism will also get dropped. Another method is perhaps feeling thankful to anything and everything. We should feel thankful even to our enemies and rivals, if there are any. Because it is of them, because of their opposition that we have reached so high up, like a kite. A kite is helped by the opposing wind. Another method I would like to suggest is forgive and forget. Life is too short. It is too short a drama. It cannot be stretched for many hours. It is just like a paper. It is just like a sheet of paper which cannot even be fully stretched. Like a piece of paper, life can be torn off any moment. If we are ready to forgive and forget, it will bring peace as well as it will help us to drop our egoism. Be like a child. Only a child is the most powerful egoist. Perfect egoist is a perfect child. He can show you his egoism without any shyness. Others may blame you for childishness. Just laugh aloud. Allow people to say anything that they like. Be relaxed. Don't try to pick up a fight. Just relax. Remember, in fight, the ego only gets nourishment. Give some space for a light laughter. Sometimes it's okay to commit a few mistakes. Sometimes it is okay when people criticize you. Sometimes people can criticize. Keep searching for your true self. Self-inquiry is the very purpose of life. There are people who complain that others are all egoistic, forgetting the fact that they themselves have a bigger ego. There are people who say that others are very rude, forgetting the fact that they themselves are far ruder than anyone else. One should reflect upon oneself. And remember that we can't correct others. The only thing that we can do is to give others a chance to correct ourselves. The only thing that we can do is to give others a chance to correct ourselves. Thank you very much.